They told you it runs in the family, the anxiety, the plateau, the pattern of starting strong and fading fast. They pointed to your parents, your grandparents, like your future was already written in some biological script you never agreed to sign. But here's what they didn't tell you, what scientists are just now screaming from the rooftops. Your brain isn't a prison, it's a workshop. And every single day, you're either building bars or building wings. The question isn't what you inherited, it's what you're going to do with the raw material. Let's start with something uncomfortable. You've probably caught yourself saying it. Maybe out loud, maybe just in the privacy of your own thoughts. I'm just wired this way. When you procrastinate, when you freeze up, when you sabotage the good thing right before it gets great, you tell yourself it's genetic. Hardwired. That your brain came with certain limitations, certain ceilings, and fighting them is like trying to teach a fish to climb a tree. And look, I get why that story feels safe. Because if it's genetic, it's not your fault. If it's bloodline, you're off the hook. You didn't choose your parents. You didn't choose your starting point. The deck was stacked before you even sat down at the table. But here's where that story stops being comfort and starts being a cage. Because while you've been blaming your DNA, neuroscientists have been watching brains literally rewire themselves in real time. They've watched taxi drivers in London grow enlarged hippocampi from memorizing thousands of streets. They've watched musicians develop thicker corpus callosums from years of coordinating both hands. They've watched people who survived strokes rebuild entire neural pathways, teaching the right side of their brain to do what the left side forgot. Your brain is not static. It's not set. It's not a finished product that's shipped from the factory with permanent specs. It's clay. And every thought you think, every action you take, every pattern you repeat or break, you're sculpting. So when you say I'm just wired this way, what you're really saying is, I've practiced this pattern so many times that it feels permanent. And that's true. It does feel permanent. The groove is deep. The path is worn. But feelings aren't facts. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're walking through a forest and there's no trail. The first time through, it's rough. Branches in your face, roots tripping you up, slow going. But you keep walking the same route. Day after day, week after week. Eventually, the underbrush gets trampled. The path becomes visible. Then easy. Then automatic. You could walk it in the dark. That's a neural pathway. That's habit. That's the wiring you think is permanent. But here's what you're missing. You can walk a different direction. You can bushwhack a new trail. And yeah, it's going to be rough at first. Yeah, it's going to feel unnatural and exhausting and wrong. But if you keep walking it, that path gets easier too. And the old path, the one you stopped using, it grows over. The forest reclaims it. Not immediately, not without resistance, but inevitably. This is neuroplasticity. This is the thing they didn't teach you in school. Your brain is a democracy, not a dictatorship. Whatever you practice gets the vote. Whatever you repeat gets the power. And you've been voting for the same old patterns your whole life, then wondering why nothing changes. Now, let's talk about bloodline. Because this is where it gets really interesting. You probably know about genetics, the idea that certain traits get passed down. Height, eye color, predisposition to certain health conditions. And yes, there's some truth there. You did inherit certain baseline tendencies. But here's what the research is showing. Genes are more like light switches than like concrete. They can be turned on or off, expressed or suppressed, activated or silenced. This is called epigenetics, and it's the difference between blueprint and destiny. Think about it like this. You inherited a house, the structure, the foundation, the bones of the place that came from your lineage. But you get to choose the furniture. You get to choose the paint. You get to choose whether you maintain it or let it fall apart, whether you renovate or settle, whether you live in just one room or explore the whole damn mansion. Your grandfather's temper? That's a light switch. You can leave it on, keep that circuit hot, let it run your life the way it ran his. Or you can notice when it flickers, interrupt the pattern, and choose a different response. One time won't rewire decades, but 1,000 times? 10,000 times? You're building a new default. Your mother's anxiety? Same thing. Maybe you inherited a nervous system that runs hot. Maybe your baseline stress response is more sensitive than someone else's. But that doesn't mean you're doomed to live in constant fight or flight. It means you have to be more intentional. It means you have more work to do. Not because life is unfair, though it might be, but because that's the hand you're playing, and complaining about the cards doesn't improve your game. And here's the part that'll either free you or terrify you. The patterns you're running right now, the ones you think you inherited, you're also passing them forward. Not just genetically, behaviorally, energetically. The way you handle stress, the way you talk to yourself, the way you navigate conflict. If you have kids, if you mentor anyone, if you exist in community, they're watching, they're learning, they're absorbing. So this isn't just about you breaking free. It's about you breaking a chain. But let's get practical. Because inspiration without application is just entertainment, and you didn't come here to feel good for 10 minutes and then go back to the same loops. Here's what rewiring actually looks like. First, you have to catch the pattern. And this is harder than it sounds because patterns are invisible when you're inside them. They feel like reality. They feel like just how things are. So you need to create distance. You need to become the observer of your own mind. This might look like pausing when you feel that familiar tightness in your chest. That moment right before you snap at someone, right before you scroll to numb out, right before you quit on yourself again. That's the fork in the road. That's the moment where you usually take the worn path without thinking. But if you can pause, even for 3 seconds, you create a gap. And in that gap, there's choice. Second, you name it, out loud if you have to. This is the pattern. This is the thing I always do. This is the loop. Because once you name it, it loses some of its power. It stops being you and starts being a behavior you've practiced. There's separation. There's space. Third, you choose differently. And here's the key. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the opposite extreme. It just has to be different. If you usually yell, try walking away. If you usually shut down, try saying one honest sentence. If you usually binge, try stopping after one episode, one scroll, one bite. Small deviation. New path. Fourth, you repeat. Because one time is a fluke. One time is trying on a costume. But repetition is rewiring. Repetition is building a new highway in your brain, one that eventually becomes smoother than the old route. And fifth, and this is the one people skip, you expect resistance. You expect it to feel wrong. You expect the old pattern to scream at you to come back, to tell you this new way is fake, unnatural, not who you really are. That voice is loud because the old pattern is fighting for survival. But that doesn't make it true. That makes it threatened. Let me tell you what nobody talks about, the identity crisis that comes with change. Because when you start rewiring, when you start breaking the loops, there's this moment where you don't recognize yourself. The old you is fading, but the new you isn't solid yet. You're in between. You're neither. And that feels like dying. Your friends might not recognize you. They might push back, make jokes, try to pull you back into the old dynamic because your change threatens their stasis. Your family might be confused, maybe even resentful, because you're breaking a contract they didn't know existed. The contract that says we all stay the same, we all stay small, we all stay stuck together. And the voice in your head will absolutely tell you to go back. It'll say, see? This isn't you. You're trying too hard. You're being fake. Just be yourself. But here's the truth bomb. Yourself isn't a fixed thing. Yourself is a collection of practiced patterns. And if those patterns aren't serving you, if they're keeping you small, scared, stuck, then being yourself is a trap. The new version isn't fake. It's unfamiliar. There's a difference. Think about the first time you did anything. The first time you drove a car. The first time you spoke in front of people. The first time you stood up for yourself. It felt awkward, mechanical, like you were playing a role. But you did it again and again. And eventually, it became natural. It became you. That's how all growth works. You fake it until the faking becomes real. You practice the person you're becoming until that person is who you are. Now let's zoom out. Because this isn't just about individual habits. This is about your entire operating system. Most people are running software that was installed in childhood. The beliefs about what's possible, what's safe, what you deserve, those got programmed early. By your parents, your teachers, your environment, your early wins and losses. And that software has been running in the background ever since, making decisions for you, filtering reality for you, keeping you in a very specific lane. But you're not a kid anymore. You have root access now. You can look at the code. You can see which beliefs are serving you and which ones are sabotaging you. And you can rewrite them. This is the deeper work. This is the stuff that separates people who make surface changes from people who fundamentally transform. Ask yourself, what do I believe about my capacity? Do I believe I'm capable of extraordinary things, or do I believe I'm average at best? Do I believe effort compounds, or do I believe talent is fixed? Do I believe I can learn anything, or do I believe some people are just naturals and I'm not one of them? Ask yourself, what do I believe I deserve? Do I believe I deserve rest, or do I believe rest is for people who've earned it and I haven't yet? Do I believe I deserve love, or do I believe love is conditional and I have to perform to keep it? Do I believe I deserve to take up space, or do I believe I should stay small and grateful for scraps? Ask yourself, what do I believe about change? Do I believe people can fundamentally shift, or do I believe everyone's just a slightly evolved version of who they were at 15? Do I believe I can break generational patterns, or do I believe the apple doesn't fall far from the tree? Because here's the thing, whatever you believe becomes your ceiling. Whatever you believe becomes your filter. You will find evidence for whatever you're looking for. If you believe you're limited, you'll notice every failure and ignore every win. If you believe you're capable, you'll notice every small improvement and use it as fuel. Your beliefs are not neutral, they're directives. They're instructions you're giving your brain about what to pay attention to, what to remember, what to prioritize. And if your instructions are rooted in scarcity, fear, and limitation, that's the world you're going to experience. Not because that's reality, because that's your filter. So how do you change a belief? You can't just think your way out. You can't just affirm your way into a new reality. Beliefs change through evidence, through experience, through proving to yourself over and over that the old story isn't true. This means you have to take action that contradicts the belief. You have to do the thing you don't think you can do. You have to speak up when you believe you should stay quiet. You have to try when you believe you'll fail. You have to stay when you believe you should run. And here's the brutal part. The first 100 times, it won't feel true. It'll feel like pretending, like lying, like you're fooling everyone, including yourself. But somewhere around repetition 500, something shifts. The evidence stacks up. The pattern solidifies. And the new belief starts to feel more real than the old one. This is the long game. This is the work that doesn't make for sexy before and afters. But this is the work that sticks. Let's talk about fear for a second. Because fear is the thing that keeps most people locked in old patterns even after they know better. Fear isn't the enemy. Fear is information. It's your nervous system saying, this is new, this is uncertain, proceed with caution. And in some contexts, that's useful. If you're about to step into traffic, fear is your friend. But most of you fear isn't protecting you from actual danger. It's protecting you from discomfort, from uncertainty, from the possibility of failure, rejection, looking stupid, being seen. And here's the thing about that kind of fear. It doesn't go away. You don't conquer it. You don't transcend it. You learn to move with it. You learn to say, yeah, I feel that, and I'm doing it anyway. Because courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear and recognizing it's not a stop sign. It's just weather. It's just static. It's just your old programming trying to keep you safe by keeping you small. The people you admire, the ones who seem fearless, they're not. They just have a different relationship with fear. They've practiced feeling it and moving forward so many times that it's become their default. The fear is there. They just don't let it drive. And you can build that same muscle. You build it by doing small, scary things. By raising your hand in the meeting, by sending the message, by having the conversation, by posting the thing, by starting before you're ready. Each time you do it, you're teaching your nervous system, we survived. It wasn't as bad as we thought. We can do hard things. And each time, the fear gets a little quieter. Not gone, just quieter. Now, here's where people get stuck. They think transformation is linear. They think, I'll work on myself, I'll get better, and then I'll be fixed. Like there's a finish line, like there's a version of you that's complete, polished, done. But that's not how this works. Transformation is cyclical. You'll level up, then plateau, you'll break through, then backslide. You'll have weeks where you feel unstoppable, then days where you're back in the old loops wondering if you learned anything at all. This doesn't mean you failed, this means you're human. Growth isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. You'll come back to the same lessons, the same patterns, the same fears, but at a higher level, with more awareness, with more tools, with more proof that you can handle it. The key is to not interpret the backslide as evidence that change is impossible. The key is to recognize it as part of the process. To be gentle with yourself in those moments instead of using them as ammunition for self-attack. Because here's what'll kill your progress faster than anything: shame. Perfectionism. The belief that you should be further along by now, that you should have it figured out, that everyone else is doing it better. That's the old programming talking. That's the voice that wants you to stay stuck. Because stuck is familiar, and familiar feels safe. The truth is, some days you'll be the person you're becoming. Some days you'll be the person you were. And most days you'll be somewhere in between. That's not failure. That's being alive. So what do you do with all this? How do you actually apply it? You start small, ridiculously small. Because the brain doesn't trust big leaps. The brain trusts repetition, consistency, proof. Pick one pattern you want to change, not 5, 1. The one that's costing you the most. Maybe it's the way you talk to yourself. Maybe it's the way you avoid conflict. Maybe it's the way you numb out when things get hard. One pattern, then pick one tiny intervention, one new response, one small deviation from the script, and practice it every single day. Not when you feel like it, not when it's convenient. Every day, for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. However long it takes for it to stop feeling like effort and start feeling like option. Track it if that helps. Journal about it. Tell someone who will hold you accountable. But most importantly, expect it to be hard. Expect resistance. Expect the old pattern to fight back. Because it will. And if you're not prepared for that, you'll interpret the difficulty as evidence that it's not working. But the difficulty is evidence that it is working. You're building something new. Construction is messy. And while you're doing this, pay attention to the identity shift. Notice when you start seeing yourself differently. When you start thinking, I'm someone who keeps commitments to myself. I'm someone who speaks up. I'm someone who doesn't run when things get uncomfortable. Those micro-identity shifts compound, and eventually, they become the foundation for the next level of growth. One more thing before we close this out. You're going to have moments where you look around and think, why is this so hard for me when it seems easy for everyone else? You're going to compare your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. You're going to wonder if you're broken, if you're doing it wrong, if maybe you really are just wired for struggle. And in those moments, I need you to remember, everyone is fighting a version of this battle. Everyone has patterns they're trying to break. Everyone has old programming they're trying to rewrite. The difference is most people are pretending they don't. Most people are performing certainty while drowning in doubt. You're not broken for struggling. You're aware. And awareness is the first step to change. The fact that you're still here, the fact that you're looking for answers, the fact that you haven't given up on yourself, that's not weakness. That's strength. That's evidence that some part of you knows you're capable of more. And that part is right. But let me be clear about something. Knowing all this doesn't make it easier. Understanding neuroplasticity doesn't make the rewiring painless. Recognizing that beliefs are changeable doesn't make the changing automatic. This is work, real work. The kind that doesn't show up on social media. The kind that happens in the dark at 3 in the morning when you're wrestling with the voice that says go back to sleep. Skip the thing. Quit while you're ahead. The kind that happens in boring moments, in frustrating moments, in moments where nobody's watching and nobody would know if you gave up. That's where transformation lives. Not in the inspirational quotes, not in the breakthrough moments, in the 1,000 tiny choices that nobody sees. And here's what makes it worth it. You start to trust yourself differently. You start to know, bone deep, that you can do hard things, that you can keep promises to yourself, that you can weather the discomfort and come out the other side. That kind of self-trust, that's power. Real power. Not the kind that comes from controlling others or dominating situations. The kind that comes from knowing you can count on yourself. The kind that says, whatever happens, I can handle it. And once you have that, once you've proven it to yourself over and over, the fear gets smaller. Not because the world gets safer, because you get stronger. Think about what that means for your life, for your relationships, for your career, for your legacy. When you're not constantly second-guessing yourself, when you're not paralyzed by fear of making the wrong choice, when you're not stuck in the same destructive patterns, what becomes possible? When you can have hard conversations without shutting down or blowing up, when you can pursue what you want without sabotaging it, when you can sit with discomfort without numbing out, who do you become? When you break the generational patterns, when you rewire the limiting beliefs, when you build new defaults, what do you create? This is bigger than just fixing what's broken. This is about building something entirely new. A version of you that your younger self would be in awe of. A version that your lineage didn't prepare you for because they couldn't see past their own limitations. You get to be the anomaly, the one who broke the mold, the one who looked at the hand they were dealt and said, okay, but watch this. And it starts with one choice, one deviation, one moment of saying, not this time, not this pattern, not anymore. You don't have to overhaul your entire life tomorrow. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to start. You just have to choose one thing and do it differently. One thing today, one thing tomorrow, one thing the day after that. And 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, you'll look back and barely recognize the person you were. Not because they were bad or wrong, because you outgrew them, because you chose to. Your lineage doesn't define you. Your past doesn't own you. Your patterns are not permanent. You are not stuck. You are not limited by your wiring. You're limited by what you're willing to practice, by what you're willing to believe, by what you're willing to become. And every single day you get to choose. The DNA you inherited gave you a starting point, but your choices write the story. Your choices build the life. Your choices create the legacy. So what are you choosing today? What pattern are you interrupting? What new path are you carving? Because the forest is waiting. The trail is yours to make. And the old path? It's already starting to grow over. You are not your bloodline's final chapter. You're the plot twist they never saw coming. Pick the one pattern that's been running your life on autopilot. Name it. Tomorrow, when it shows up, choose different. Just once. Then again. Not perfect, just different. Drop a comment. What's the one pattern you're interrupting today?